Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee LaValle McKenna. I'm a therapist and shamanic healer. And today I want to talk about sex and intimacy. And in the realm of sex and intimacy, we're really talking about three things. We could almost see them like a triangle. In one corner, we have sex. In another corner, we have intimacy. And in the third corner, we have sex and intimacy together. And just because you're sexual with someone does not mean that you're actually intimate with them. And having intimacy doesn't require having sex. And then, of course, there's the shadow side of sex and intimacy, which is fear, manipulation, selfishness, and control. We can't effectively talk about sex and intimacy without also talking about love and eros. And I'll talk about all those factors a little bit later, but I love wordplay as much as I love sex play, and sex really is adult play. But the wordplay on the word intimacy, into me you see. That intimacy is really about letting people see who we really are, letting them in. And when we're sexual with someone, we're certainly letting them into our personal space. And if you have intercourse, particularly as a woman, you're actually letting someone into your body. And the same is true for anal and oral sex, no matter what gender you are. In French kissing, you're going into another person's body. Even with mama kisses, you're really in someone's space, hugging. You're intertwining your energy with theirs, exchanging body fluids, pheromones. And pheromones, if you aren't familiar with the term, are similar to hormones, but they work outside the body, and they induce activity in other individuals. So it's believed that most insects use pheromones to communicate, like bees and ants. And people, like all vertebrates, maybe all living beings, excrete or secrete different chemicals with our breath, our saliva, our skin glands, our urine and excrement, and from our genitals and armpits. If you've ever dated anybody and really liked them, they're a nice person, you guys get along, but you just can't stand how they smell, that's pheromones. And they're pretty powerful because they can work the other way too. My first husband was a fucking train wreck. Oh my God, but I loved the way that he smelled. And we had an incredible sex life, but in every other area, it was horrible. He's dead now. I divorced him long before he died. And a month after I filed for divorce, I also had to file for bankruptcy. And the last time I saw him, which was decades ago, we almost had sex because our physical and erotic connection was so intense. But we had almost no intimacy. And it's very interesting because I had a long-term relationship where we had excruciating sex problems. We were mismatched with desire and frequency, with intensity, and he didn't like how I smelled. And when I tried to share or unleash my sexuality that normally turned other guys on, it had the opposite effect. It made him retract. But we stayed together for a long time because every other area of our life was really good. And although we had almost no sex, we had tremendous intimacy. In fact, the issues in our sex life actually forced us into the deepest intimacy that I had had up to that point. Because we had to talk openly and honestly, vulnerably, and lovingly about really challenging topics. You may have heard of the 5 love languages. It's pretty popular in couples counseling, and I don't really like the term pop psychology, but I guess it stands for popular psychology. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, physical touch, and I would include sexuality in there, receiving gifts or gift giving, quality time, and acts of service. There's tons of information about the 5 love languages online. And the 5 love languages were codified by Gary Chapman. He's a Baptist minister out of North Carolina. And he's got an extensive series of books about the 5 love languages. I'll leave a link in the show notes. He's still alive. He was born in 1938. I love old, wise people who have been through many relationship experiences. I know for myself, I feel like I'm just figuring it out in my mid-50s, pulling together the algorithm of sex, intimacy, eros, love, fear, selfishness, manipulation, control. Whoa. The human stew of sex, love, and intimacy. My personal love languages are physical touch and sexuality, and quality time. It's interesting work in a coupleship. I love that term, coupleship. The term coupleship comes from a little-known but extremely powerful 12-step fellowship called Recovering Couples Anonymous, RCA. So one of the responsibilities of coupleship is to learn the love language of your partner and your own. What makes your partner feel loved and valued? What makes you feel loved and cared for? How do you express intimacy or love with another? Often in relationship, people have different love languages. And coming to understand the language of your partner and yourself can give you a whole new understanding and appreciation for why people do what they do. And this applies to sexuality as well. There are many different reasons that people have sex. For some, it might be purely about physical pleasure and orgasm. For others, it might be about exchanging love and feeling close. For some, it's about intrigue and excitement, passion. Couples might be exploring power dynamics. It's important information to understand why we want to have sex and why our partner might want to have sex. Is it for love and connection, obligation, pleasure, play, duty, habit, escape, relief, creativity? What motivates us sexually is an interesting question for introspection and a really intimate conversation. And in an intimate relationship with another person, we always have three choices. We can accept things how they are, we can ask for them to change, or we can remove ourselves from the situation. And those choices, the free will that we have as adult humans, apply to the microcosm and the macrocosm. They can apply to how we do the dishes, or they can apply to the relationship in general. I was extremely promiscuous in my early 20s. I had a lot of one-night stands. They're called hookups now. It's such a nicer term. So I had a lot of sex and not a lot of intimacy. I've had long periods in my life of deep intimacy without a lot of sex. I think what many people are looking for is a combination of both. I know it's true for me. I want sex, love, and intimacy. But life and relationship are verbs. They aren't things we acquire like buying a new car. Although getting in relationship can feel like getting a new car. It's fun and exciting. The interior smells really good. But over time, it needs repair, needs maintenance. Now, I know people who have a perpetual lease, so they're always in a new car. And I know people who date that way. I heard about this wealthy guy who only dates 26-year-olds. He's in his late 40s or early 50s. And he puts ads out for 26-year-old women and tells them they'll be together for 6 to 8 weeks. I forget where I read about that. And he wines and dines them, flies them around on his private jets, and then probably right about the point where it would start to require intimacy, he gets a new one. There's nothing wrong with that system, I suppose, especially if everybody knows what they're doing. But the thing I know about sexual and intimate relationships, love relationships in general, is that they really call us to grow. I worked with a woman recently, really high-functioning sales executive, very attractive woman in her early 60s, nice condo in the city, active social life, hadn't dated in 15 years. When she hired a relationship coach and she started to work with me, she'd had a breakup 15 years ago that took her out. And so she started dating this guy she met on a dating site. And within 3 months, she was completely obsessed with him. Every insecurity and unresolved emotional issue that she had been able to keep in the closet with her really genuinely high-functioning life, every demon she had was having a dance party in her living room. And he broke up with her, and she lost it. In fact, she basically had a nervous breakdown. She couldn't go to work. She went into an incredible pit of depressive despair. And for her, what I saw as the particular issue was that she had attached her self-worth to how he felt about her. And a lot of people do that in relationship. I know I have. And although one of the really powerful, healing, transformative aspects of intimate relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic, is to be seen and accepted by another person. One of the important calls of intimacy is to realize our own intrinsic self-worth. That intimacy with another can really call me into deeper relationship with myself as I choose what to share, what to withhold. In fact, the perpetual issue for me, my own growing edge, is to continually self-reveal. I'm not going to tell you I never lied in relationship, but the main dishonesty for me has been lies of omission. The things I don't say, the truth I don't tell, even to myself. Can I be honest with myself about how I feel, what I want, what I need, what I think? In fact, the most powerful turning point for intimacy in my life was when I started telling my partner, sharing with him the things I had been talking about for years with my friends and advisors. I knew what the problems were, but I didn't share them honestly with him because I was afraid. And withholding that honesty, withholding my own truth, was manipulation and control. Because if I tell you what I really feel and think, then I don't have control over how you perceive me or the choices you might make. It's actually very unloving to do that because I'm taking away another person's opportunity to have all the information they need to make clear choices. I have a podcast on emotional honesty if you want to go a little deeper into my perspective on that. And I think these boogeymen of humanity, fear, control, selfishness, manipulation, or dishonesty, we need to always watch out for those. And we need to watch for them, not to just avoid them, but to really be present with them. And how do we want to manage our control issues, our fear, our selfishness, our desire to manipulate outcomes for our own benefit, or organize things so people see us in a particular way that we think is beneficial to us, which is actually abuse of power in a subtle way. We all do it. But the more we can be conscious about what we're doing, then we can grow and evolve and be our best self to participate in this stew cooking thing, the meal of life we all share in. Questions I like to ask is, where am I being called to grow? In honesty, in intimacy, in allowing you to see into me, in vulnerability, in love, connection, sexuality, healthy communication. Often in relationship, we want the other person to change. If you would only be different, I would be more comfortable. It doesn't work. My life is dedicated to helping people change and grow. So I know it's possible, but it is also not probable. And who the person is how they are. Never expect anyone to change. If you can't be with them exactly as they are today, then you might want to ask yourself those questions. Can I accept this? Do I need to ask for change, or do I need to go? That's the work of intimacy, that negotiation, both within ourselves and with another person. And it can feel incredibly complicated. But a plant does not need to understand the principles of photosynthesis in order to follow the sun and have a good life. And neither do we. We're part of a larger, complex process, and we just need to know our part in it. And for me, the best place I can stand is to show up, to tell the truth, and to leave the results to God. And those three things are really, really challenging. Showing up, really honestly, vulnerably, fully being present and showing up is a challenge. Telling the truth. I have to know what my truth is to be able to tell it. And then I got to let go of the results once I do that and participate in this process that I'm a part of and trust that the universe has my back, because it does. And we live in an age and a time now where we really can live how we want to live, both men and women. And if we want to just be sexual with people, if we want to just be intimate with people, if we want a mix of both, it's up to us. No shame, no blame. But we often do need to know what we really want if we're going to get it. Not always, but if we don't know, even if it shows up for us, we might miss it. We might not recognize it. I'm at a place now where how I do things and when I do things is as important as what it is I actually do. I want to talk about eros, passion, and desire. That's what's driven by those pheromones. Attraction. That plant follows the sun. If you have any plants, you'll notice they move their leaves to absorb as much sun. They have desire for the sun, just as we might have desires for connection, sexuality, intimacy, love, passion, fulfillment, peace. And although Buddha says that desire and aversion, its opposite, is the root of suffering, and that may be true. It's also the engine that drives my life and pulls me forward. What am I attracted to? What do I desire? And when I can show up for that, be honest about it, and let go of the results, amazing things happen. And I think the death of most intimate relationships is the loss of eros or desire. That the relationship or the partner or the coupleship becomes like that old car that we just don't pay attention to, rather than a living, infinitely creative portal to universal life force that each of us is. I've been doing personal growth work for 30 years and I still don't understand myself completely. I still surprise myself all the time. And so do all the other people that I work. That's why I love my work so much, because people are infinitely fascinating. You will never know your partner. There is always more. That each person is actually a portal. And we can never fully explore that in this lifetime. And that adventure, that adult play with the universal life force through another, can absolutely be experienced through sexuality, through emotional connection, through intellectual discourse, through human touch, through quality time. Sex and intimacy are an endless adventure. You know, Nelson Mandela got married for the third time when he was 80 years old. I'm on a whole new adventure and level of sex and intimacy in my own life in my mid-50s. I wouldn't be in my early 20s again if you paid me. So I invite you to look at what you're putting into the pot of your own relational stew. Where are you at with sex, intimacy, love, eros, fear, manipulation, control, selfishness? It's a spicy mix and very nourishing if we look and live deeply in it. Thanks as always to my generous supporters on Patreon. You can find my book, Allies and Demons, Working with Spirit for Power and Healing, and its accompanying workbook on Amazon, soon to come out on Audible. If you're interested to see how spiritual psychology might benefit your life, or find out more about my 3-month mentorship program, shoot me an email, info@reneemckenna.com. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.